Well, welcome everyone. So glad to have you here, have you back, or have you here if it's the first time. This is our weekly WeAwake worldwide meditation, and we call it WeAwake because when you practice together, we tend to wake up together, and it tends to just add a layer or a field of power, even if we're meditating together online, but on the other side of the world, in other continents, all this stuff, it doesn't seem to matter. It's a non-local effect of prayer and meditation. So today we're listening to Kismet, Kismet, by our dear friend and brilliant colleague, Nadja, and we're doing track number 1. And it is 28 minutes. It's a little longer than we usually do, but hopefully it will just be beautiful. And it takes you alpha, theta, and back to alpha. So anyway, those are all great tracks. I mean, great brainwaves to train your brain to in order to do what you need to do your inner work. And so why do we do this stuff? A little reminder from the writings of Ken Wilber, and or maybe somebody said it before him, but I never heard it from anybody. But he said basically, as I interpreted, the purpose of our life is 1, to wake up. I know I got these bracelets crinking, and I can see Heidi cringing. Oh, okay. Anyway, I'll take them off later. Just to wake up, right? Spiritually, boom. Become aware of who and what we are actually at the deepest level, beyond our individual ego self. What are we, right? And to grow up, which means vertically, to get to the highest levels of development that we possibly can achieve. Because why? Because we're much more functional. And a lot of the problems that we've created, our human family on the planet, are only fixable in large part, ultimately fixable. I mean, they're short-term fixes, but ultimately fixable from these higher levels of development. So Ken Wilber once said, well, isn't this all very, somebody said, is this all very elitist? And he said, well, yes, but it's elitism to which everyone is invited, okay? Doesn't exclude anybody. If you're willing to do the work and, show up. And so anyway, so it's a wake up, it's grow up, and clean up, which is interpreted by various people in various ways. But the way I understand it, just clean up your act, okay? Anything that's keeping you from being the person that you need to be, just knock it off already, okay? And you'll be happier. You won't waste a lot of your life force on stuff that is really not what you're supposed to be doing. And it will make your life force grow to do the things that you're supposed to do. And then lastly, it's a show up, right? We do all this stuff so we can show up and do the work and heed the call and be the forces of good and compassion and healing and creativity and courage that we all need to be. And I don't think these are, I mean, they can go, step by step, but I think you're supposed to do all of this at the same time. We're supposed to be waking up, supposed to be growing up, and we're supposed to be cleaning up and showing up. And we, as my friend and colleague, Dr. Roger Walsh said, the world is on fire right now. We are living in very, very evolutionary, volatile times. So this is not a time to go to sleep or stay asleep. And although it may feel more secure to, go into your turtle shell, or your crab shell, as in my case, I'm a Cancer on the Enneagram, horoscope wise, astrologically. And, we have our shells to protect our tender little hearts. And we need to learn to open our hearts and feel the feelings and feel those feelings and know they won't kill us. But if we stay with them, they will lead us into a higher level of compassion and awareness. So all of these scary things that we avoid can only really hurt us if we spend our life trying to avoid them, right? So have to accept it, whatever it is. And that's where we find God. That's where we find peace. It's in the middle of our traumas, in the middle of our pain. And there's a lot of that now. So without further ado, again, this is Kismet. Number one, Kismet is a Turkish word for destiny. And a little sideline with this is choice is destiny. So the choices we make become our destiny. And, you know, you get into the whole thing, what is it, free will or whatever? I think experience shows us that the more complexity in the creature, the more chances there are for free will. And so it gets really interesting. So we are called to take responsibility for our lives and make the right choices. And hopefully we have people that can support us. But if we don't, we need to find the teachers and support that we need to do the work that we need to do. And often in the progress of an individual's life, you need to be with the teacher early on. And then as you achieve mastery, you go on your own and do what you're supposed to do. So without further ado, we'll talk on the other side. So everybody get ready, have your headphones on, and let's Kismet. I never know how to say welcome back. We didn't go anywhere. But anyway, we had a man visiting our home here. We're staying in this, Pam's family has this old, huge ancestral home in California. That's where I've been residing. And it's like an old person. It takes a lot of care, a lot of stuff. But anyway, so while I was during this meditation, a lovely man walked in with my dog and said, "Howdy." And I was just, ugh. And he said, "Okay," in a way. And I was thinking that did that, anyway, damage my meditation. It's not true. It's the return from the distractions that really changes the brain. And that is the practice. Just keep going. And I was talking to a young man whom you'll see one of these days. He's staying with us for a while. He's my meditation partner in the mornings. And is not to get too involved in listening to the music or the sounds, but allow the sounds to become rather the context, the holder of what's going on in your center. So I think that's very helpful. And that's what I've developed over the years of using this. And, one of that came to me when we were meditating, I've had various openings or big powerful spirit experiences. I'm a mystic. Over the years, it first started when I was 11 years old. So I often say I've been haunted by God my whole life. I have this experience. And it's like, what do you do with that? And then it's as you walk the walk, it gets revealed what you do with that. But I had a very powerful opening or enlightenment experience when I first started using this technology. And I think often the universe will give initiators, really powerful experiences like Bill W. with AA and anything. So we have the kind of just undeniable kick in the pants that this is important. So I had this experience and it was like totally non-dual. I was everything. Okay. But little speck of me, John, was there. And spirit said, or the voice said, and that little speck of John is very important. Like, really? Yep. And I started laughing because, oftentimes, and maybe in the popular interpretation of Buddhism, is like no self. The ego is supposed to go away and just have, well, maybe not. And we did a talk with Christopher Bache on the Deep Transformation podcast that's available anywhere you get your podcast. And it's a 3-part talk. And he is the author of a book called LSD and the Mind of the Universe. And he's a psychologist, a PhD, a tenured professor at a good university. But he did over a 20-year period, he did 27 high-dose LSD sessions. He said, John, they weren't trips, they were sessions, because trip kind of makes it, it's some kind of playing around with this thing. And so, okay. And, he covered eyes and he had music and he had somebody sitting there and he was taken progressively on a long, long journey. And it took him about 10 years to finally write up the notes and all and create the book. And he kind of had to do it after his professional teaching career ended because it would have been a little much for the university authorities to handle. But one of the things that he said many things, and like there's nothing in there that takes away from the deep esoteric understandings of all the great traditions. It just says it with a lot more granularity, and it's here fresh for us. And he did it. He didn't recommend anybody to do what he did. It was like, not that he's not saying don't do psychedelics in a respectful way, but what he did was just way, way beyond the pale in most cases. But he did say that after go through these processes, there's so many death and rebirth experiences, and death, feels like death. You're going away, and that can be terrifying. But you don't go away. and you get reborn. And so after you do that enough times, it's like, death, you know. There's a verse in the Bible that says, death, where, I think it's in the Psalms, death, where's thy sting? You know, after you become aware of this, you do it enough times and you remember doing enough times, okay, it's just death again. Okay, here we go. Hopefully I did the work that I was supposed to do. And one of the things that he says is that this self, this individual self, is one of the most spectacular and precious thing that the universe, that God ever came up with. And he's not trying to do away with it, but he's trying to purify each time, each suffering, each trauma, each experience, each lifetime. We get closer to it. And if we get off the track, you know, we'll eventually get there, right? And but he says, individuality, and this really stuck with me, is not the problem. Your individual self, which is commonly called the ego and kind of a pejorative term, so individuality is not the problem. Separation is the problem. Okay. When the individual self feels like it's separate from the rest of the universe, separate from God, separate from all other beings, okay, then it becomes, you know, existentially really, really difficult to get on. So it seems that we get to have this individual self that in some mysterious ways transmutes from lifetime to lifetime. But as we go through experiences, and some days there's new souls, people that just showed up recently, and there's older ones that have been around a few times. And I think intuitively we kind of get that. Sometimes we meet people that just, okay, it's an old soul. It's not working out all the dramas and stuff that, you know, us teenagers are doing or something like that. And even children, you'll see this is a very wise being. Where did this come from? Well, according to this, you know, and even in early Christianity, there was a sense of reincarnation. Jesus took, I think it was Peter, Andrew, and John, like the three inner core of his disciples, and they went up to pray. Jesus go up and pray in mountains. He would always get away to pray during his ministry. Just because he's God's son didn't mean he didn't need to practice. So if Jesus had to do it, how much more should we, right? And they had a vision of him, these two angels, you know, and he said it was Elijah, and it was Elijah and Moses he saw. And when they met John the Baptist, he said, that's Elijah. In other words, this John the Baptist guy is, you know, one of the great prophets from the Old Testament time. So, and the early church father Origen, which only fragments have survived historically, because at some point the church tried to cut him off and cancel him, right? But enough did, and he was very understanding of the whole reincarnation thing. So in esoteric Christianity and in some of the early writings that actually survived from some of the main people, it was pretty much accepted as a given. So, well, where do we go with that? Well, in some ways, it can kind of let us, you know, relax. It's like, oh, you know, when I die, it's not just the lights turn off. That's it. That's all, folks. It's not that. And that can be good, you know, and you take my word for it. But take the word of your own, what your own deeper soul tells you. And Christopher Bache has written a really great book on reincarnation. It just goes and shows you all the scientific data. And after read it, I haven't read it yet, but I want to. It says it's pretty much a slam dunk. Yeah, this is what happens. So yeah, hang on to that, and that we are here to experience what we're supposed to experience. We're here to figure out what we're supposed to be doing here, and that is growing in our knowledge and our conscious experience of the present, of the divine, you know, moment to moment, and to learn that it ain't just about me, or it ain't just about you. It's about service, and it's about giving. The Francis prayer says, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Or an old Indian medicine man once said, Lord, or said, Wakantanka, make me a hollow bone, make me a channel for your spirit to pour through. So, and you know, one of the problems with the egos is it can get inflated. You know, you really think you're something, and that's a problem. But the universe is faithful to punch holes in that, and that's a good thing. But I've often quipped that I don't think my poor ego has so many holes in it at this point. I've been kicked around enough, and I must have required a lot of kicking, right? But I don't think there's anything to inflate anymore. I got so many holes in my hope and my prayers that all those holes will allow God to come in, you know, and kind of seems how it's working. So there you go. I think that's, and don't send the guys with the nets to my house. You don't know my address anyway, but that's what I want to talk about. So your individual self does matter, apparently. And it needs to get purified and stronger and better and more beautiful. And the universe or spirit or God will supply us with enough stuff that we need to work with and overcome. But in our conscious work on ourselves and work with others, we become more deeply ourselves, which is a precious diamond individuality that is not separate from the all, but a precious part of it. So we'll put that in your pipes and smoke and see what you think. And obviously not literally, but in your inner life and your inner work. And you know, that's just what I've learned thus far. So thanks for hanging out with us. We live in really extraordinary times. The world is on fire, and hopefully we can add our consciousness and our efforts to get through this time and participate in the healing of our planet and our human family. So anyway, God bless. Thank you for being here again. And we'll be here next time, universe willing. Thank you.